Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Lady Luxe here with you with part 2 of the Q&A. I've so enjoyed receiving you guys' questions, and I'm going to try and be thoughtful about the answers. This section has to do more with background and professional, and then we'll film a third part which is going to talk about some of the challenges in the workplace you guys have mentioned and questions on how I handle things. But first I wanted to show you guys these amazing vintage Chanel earrings that I'm wearing right now. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those in another video. So I'm excited, and let's just get started. So there was a lot of questions about books that I've read. The first question from Dion Edwards says, what am I enjoying on Audible? So Audible is the main way that I consume literature, especially since I have a commute of about 30 minutes each way to the office. And right now I'm listening to Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. And if you haven't read it, I implore you to go and pick it up. I think that you will enjoy it. Just like the first video, my husband is making a drink for himself. So I'm sorry if you hear ice clinking in the background or whatever background noise. That's him again with the impeccable timing. So I'm listening to Michelle Obama's book, but I've also listened to others like Gabrielle Union's book, We're Gonna Need More Wine. I listened to Taraji's book. I've listened to Taraji P. Henson, for those of you who are not familiar. I'm not on the first name basis, but wouldn't recognize from the first name. Also, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the lady who dated 50 Cent for a minute. Vivica Fox, her book as well. So I would say get Michelle Obama's book, and then if you haven't already read We're Gonna Need More Wine, I would recommend that to you. So currently I am listening to Michelle Obama's book on Audible. Chateau Chic asks, what are the books behind me when I film in the office, and what books am I reading in my leisure time? I think I mentioned the Michelle Obama book, but I'm also in my leisure time reading another book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. It's a book that I tried to read 10 years ago, and I just was not ready for the book. It's one of those books that's going to take you on a spiritual journey. The center of that book is around how the ego affects human life and how to recognize that within yourself. If you guys remember, I was asked what my pet peeves are in the last video, and it's really anything where you can just see somebody's ego out loud, where people are rude or disrespectful, or you can tell what they're doing is very ego driven. So I am very conscious about that, and I try to keep that in check. And Eckhart Tolle's book is really centered around really self-awareness and the ego. So let me know if you've read that book. I'm reading it slowly and savoring it, because there are so many just nuggets and life lessons in that book that I really want to retain with me. And then Chateau Chic, to answer the second part of your question about what the books are behind me in the background. So I am going to just sort of point out, I know you might not be able to see, but this bottom one is Kevin Aquan, Making Faces. That's all about makeup application. Kevin Aquan, if you didn't know, is one of the legendary makeup artists of all time. This is a Chanel Collections book that's sort of a coffee table book. This book, this 2-book set is by Nina Garcia, who is I think she worked with Vogue. I remember her from judging Project Runway, and I really love her. I love her style. I love her vibe. So she has a 2-book set. One is called The 100, so 100 things that you need to know or need to have in your wardrobe. And then the other one is called The Little Black Book of Style. So recommended reading on the fashion sense for me. And then in the back here, this kind of represents just the whole of who I am. So 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, to get inspiration of where our next travel is going to be. Then just some journals. This is actually my checkbook. Oh. This is Alpha Kappa Alpha throughout the years, so just required reading for our sorority. As you guys know, I'm an AKA. There are 2 books by Jack Welch, one called Straight from the Gut and the other one called Winning. I have Straight from the Gut. I actually have both of them autographed. So I think he's an amazing businessman, and when he was running GE, it was really at the height of in my opinion, where it was going to be, because as you guys might know, GE is really having some troubles these days, and their stock has really plummeted. But I respect him as a businessman. Sometimes don't like his just general view on life, but I feel like you can always learn something from anyone. And so I read his book. And then the last one is It Worked for Me in Life and Leadership by Colin Powell. Again, another person who I immensely respect as a leader. We don't always align on our political views, that's for sure, but I never take for granted the opportunity to learn from someone. So I don't care how different you are from me, there is something to be gained by just interacting with somebody who is a little bit further ahead of you, or oftentimes people who are younger than you. So that is what is on my bookshelf. Thank you so much for the question. Okay. Faith Forever. Oh, no. There was another one. Oh, Smiachi X, I hope that I got that right, said, what are the top 3 books that have impacted and inspired your professional life? So the first one I would say would be Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's just a book that's going to help you with time management and prioritization. I highly recommend it for anyone who is in the professional world, or even your everyday life, even if you work inside the home. I know a couple of you are stay-at-home moms, and I love you and I welcome you to the channel, but it talks about time management and organization. And if you think about it, everything that we do in our life is really a project, and it just talks about managing projects very effectively. I read the version that was 10 years ago. There's since been an updated version with some proposed electronic software. I tend to try to keep my records and notes written. Okay, so I had to answer the doorbell. So David Allen's Getting Things Done is one. I would also say The Goal, which I can't remember the author. I'll put it on the screen, but it's just about how to think through process. It's really about a turnaround story of a manufacturing organization, but you could really apply it to any point in your life or any type of industry, really, because the takeaways are certainly timeless. Another book that I would mention would be Good to Great. It basically talks about the difference between good companies that sort of fizzled or failed, and great companies who are able to evolve and change with the time and really capitalize on their business models. So that's also an excellent one, and also one that our CEO was having everyone read at our jobs. I had read it before, but it's a good read, and it's a good one to pick up over and over again. Personally, I would say the number one book that has made the biggest difference in my life has been The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I'm sure a lot of you watching this have read this. I know a couple of you who comment on the channel are, frugal and would like financial tips and things like that. And if you go back to my old videos, you will see that this has not always been my life. I have not always been able to be Lady Luxe the way I've wanted to be Lady Luxe, but I made sacrifices and I got my personal financial house in order so that I could do the things that I do today. So basically, the premise behind the Total Money Makeover is essentially living debt-free. And I know 99% of people in the United States are not debt-free. They've got college loans, they've got, car loans, credit card debt, that type of thing. And it gives you a systematic way to pay off your debt. And the model is basically live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. So I have lived like no one else. And I think a lot of you have agreed that I am now living like no one else. So I would say that number one, I've bought that book for so many people who have come to me and said, hey, do you have any tips? This is what I'm trying to do. And I don't even know how many times I've gifted that book to people. So I will link all of these books below, but I would say if I had to say one above all that will touch every aspect of your life, it would be The Total Money Makeover. Of course, I have to mention the Bible because I am a Christian, but I would be lying if I said that I have read the actual King James version. I read a daily devotional, And I also have a couple of student Bibles and those types of things that put it in more plain English for me, because the way that the actual Bible is written for me is just very difficult to read and decipher. So I really use other tools. The first tool is an app called The Word for You or The Word Today. I would say the best Bible resource is called the Wayfinding Bible. And this is something that I think I mentioned in 2016 or 2017 before anybody was watching my channel. But it is an excellent resource if you want to read the Bible end to end. There is sort of the scenic route where you will literally go through the full Bible, but it's an interpretation. So it's not reading the verse, it's in plain English. And then there are different paths that you can take. Some paths hit the major stories that you need to know. There's one that's just very, very high level. It's basically a choose your own adventure through the Bible. So I highly recommend that. It's called the Wayfinding Bible NLT. I'm looking down at it. And it is sold on Amazon. You can find it, and I will also link that below. So really it's been, on the personal side, really financial. I've also read a lot of style books and fashion books, and I've probably gotten a nugget or two from a lot of other sources. I rarely find that I read something and it's applicable cover to cover. The exceptions are the Total Money Makeover and the Wayfinding Bible. So I hope that those help. I also want to thank Tulip Surfer for a similar question. Oh yes, Ket or K-E-T asks, sorry if I got that wrong. It's capital K, capital E, capital T. Am I a CEO or CFO of a company? And then I have to have a fantastic job to afford this luxury. Thank you for the compliment. Now, I've just worked really, really hard to clear a lot of other stuff out of my life to afford this luxury, but I am blessed. I consider myself very, very blessed. No, I am not a CEO or CFO of a company. Yes, my title does have the word chief in it. And I'm not sure, and moving on to Serena Curry's question, have I ever thought of becoming a CEO of a company? I have. I've considered it. I'm not sure if I want that life. I really do value my private time. I think even in my job right now, there's a lot of demands on my time. So the demands become even greater when you move to CEO. And so I'm not sure that I want those demands on my time. I never say never. And certainly once my children are a little bit older, I've got a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old, I may consider something like that, but I'm not sure that I would ever want the lifestyle. And that's what I always tell people to imagine what you want your life to look like, period, and then make your decisions from there in terms of, your spending habits, your career, whatever the case might be. You've got to picture your life in its entirety, because if you focus in on the next job and the next level and the next this or that or the other, a lot of times you can put blinders on to the other parts of your life that are just as important. And then if you get there, when you get there, you'll find that you're miserable because you haven't considered the full picture. So to answer your question, Serena, I never say never, but right now I would say I'm not I'm not aiming my sights in that direction. I'd be happy to continue at the level I am, which is a pretty high level, and not have that additional demand on me. Let's see. Faith Forever 70 asks, what is your educational background? So I've had a double major. I have an undergraduate degree in finance. I went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. I enjoyed none of that. Case is a very academic school. I think I got a pretty good education, but it wasn't the full, well-rounded college experience that I have now since understood that others enjoy. So there wasn't really a sense of like that college spirit. There wasn't really an athletic program to speak of. It's just basically the school that gave me the most money. And that's really sort of where I had to focus in at that time, to really focus on where could I go that was the best education for the least amount of money that would put me in the least amount of student debt. So I have a Bachelor of Science degree in finance and international studies. I also did a concentration in Spanish and economics. I do not have a master's degree. I was accepted to Cornell, but then my career took off and I never ended up actually starting that program. I got a big opportunity right at the same time I was accepted at Cornell and to Cornell's executive MBA program, and I am actually not a CPA. So I have gotten to where I have gotten just by being really good at my craft. I was very fortunate in that I started my career at a company that did sort of an MBA style program where you took a lot of classes and had intensive accounting and finance classes. And I just retained a lot of that information, and I'm really good at it without having all those extra degrees. Do I recommend that? In this day and age, no. Keep in mind that I've been working for over 20 years. And so a lot has changed in that time. And if I was starting my career now, I would certainly continue down the path of getting that education. It's never stood in my way, but I would also never tell anybody to not get those degrees. I will say that as you get further along in your career, those things matter less. And so I don't know that I would ever go back and get those degrees right now. But for all intents and purposes, I got my value out of my education because my bachelor's degree took me a long, long way, but I also did all the crap that nobody else wanted to do. I took the assignments that nobody else wanted, and I built a name for myself that way. And so I'm really proud of my accomplishments, despite the fact that I only have an undergraduate degree from college. Rita Mix 33 asks, what made you choose your profession, and what was your career path, education, certifications, etc.? And she asked if her question is too involved. Not at all. It's such a wonderful question. So I just talked about my education, but what made me choose my profession is actually a life story. So when I went to college, I intended to be an OBGYN. That was what I knew I wanted to be my whole life. It's what I knew I wanted to study for. And this is what happens to a lot of people, including myself, who are first generation college attendees. Right, is that I was doing really well in my classes, biology, chemistry, I was really strong. And then I took physics and my brain just does not work. It does not understand physics. And I hobbled my way through that class. And I told myself, man, if I can't handle physics, I'm just not cut out to be a doctor. So I might as well change my major. And I changed it to finance. And now, of course, on the other side of that, being older, wiser, knowing other people who are doctors and knowing what it takes to become a doctor, I realized physics is something that you get through. And really, being a medical doctor, particularly one who takes care of women, you have to be strong, where I was strong in biology and chemistry. And so that was one time in my life that I, sort of threw up my hands, and rather than gathering more information or trying to seek out people who had been there and done that before, which I didn't know any, but there were plenty of people. I could have talked to counselors at my college. I just switched my major, and that was a major life lesson. I can't say that I have regrets because my career has worked out wonderfully, and I think some of the skill sets that I would have brought to that type of job, I bring to my job right now in finance. But I think I would have been a hell of an OBGYN and really would have excelled at caring for women and helping them through some of the most important times and challenges of their life. So basically, I defaulted into my career by changing my major from something that I had known that I wanted to do my whole life. And then McNicky says, what would an alternative career path been if I didn't do what I was doing now? And that would probably be that. It would be an OBGYN or more recently, like a cosmetic dermatologist. So I've always been into skin and skincare. If you have not seen my skincare video, please, I will put an information card up there. But I love that type of thing. And I did not realize that that type of thing was a career when I was in college, but I really would enjoy doing something like that. And I'm wondering how many of you watch Dr. Pimple Popper. I love that show. And I had loved things like that even before her show became popular on TLC. And so I would really love taking care of people's skin and solving their skin challenges. So it would either be an OBGYN, that would be first place, and second place would have been a cosmetic dermatologist. Both would be in the medical field. I talked about my personal pet peeves in my first video, And I wanted to talk about a couple of professional pet peeves. I just have two great big professional pet peeves. One is just a ton of formality in the workplace. I think that gets in the way of innovation and relationship building. And I think formality in the workplace also leads to an environment that's not as diverse in terms of ideas and thoughts, and then also just the typical ways that you would think of diversity. You think about it like this: if you have an organization that is very hierarchical and very structured, and you don't go to, a certain, in my case, I'm a vice president's office without a stated appointment, and you can't just stop by and stick your head in. Typically, the people who are in my roles are not women, and they're not people of color. And so that relationship is already not natural for a lot of others. And so if you wrap that in a bunch of formality, it just maintains the status quo, because you already maybe feel like you don't have a natural relationship, and then you feel like you have to go through a bunch of red tape to access those folks. Now, I do understand, as being somebody who's very busy and whose calendar is always packed, that sometimes I'm not going to be able to see you on the day that I need to, but I make it very, very clear with everybody. I keep my calendar up to date, and if there's a white space on it, you take it, because I'm happy to meet with you. I don't care who you are. So formality really, really, I think, can be harmful in the workplace. I think that there's a place for respect and, a certain amount of decorum. I'm certainly not going to allow anybody to talk to me any old kind of way or be a little bit too familiar. I think that there is a way that you can carry yourself professionally without the formality, if that makes sense. And then the second professional pet peeve that I have is when someone makes it to a manager role or above and does not realize that their job has just expanded to become more than an individual contributor. So they just try and become an individual contributor at the next level, or they don't take the time to invest in their people, and they call you a manager because you are supposed to lead teams. And that means devoting some of your time to your teams, not being closed off to questions and making a little bit more money. So those are my two pet peeves in the professional workplace. All right, now we're going to go into another question that was asked by PJ Cat Ham. And it's a really interesting question. She's asking, what do I think of the term girl boss? And she says that she's worked in male-dominated fields, and she had a really interesting and detailed, and I think legitimate comment around this. So I am for anything that empowers women. I'm 100% for it. That being said, I think that, especially in the workplace, we are women. We don't need to be anybody's girls, and we can just be a boss, and that's fine. I have a sign, and you'll see on my closet tour, that says "Boss Lady." I'm all about that, because I am a lady and I am a woman. But the whole girl boss thing, I think, is something that maybe younger ladies in their 20s have attached to, which I think gives them a lot of inspiration and a lot of empowerment. But I think they will find that they will outgrow that term over time. I'm not offended if anyone calls me a girl boss, but if anybody asked me to describe myself, it would be, I'm a leader, I'm a mentor, I'm an executive, I am a professional, and I'm all those other things, a woman of color, right? A 40-something-year-old woman. I'm all those things after that. And so I just like to caution, in the space where men don't feel like they have to put a lot of monikers around who they are and how they show up, I don't feel like we have to either. And I think PJ Cat was saying the same thing, something similar around her comments. For me, it's not an irking thing or anything that I react to, but it's just something where I say, good for you, girl, in your 20s. And that's going to take you into being, excuse my French, a grown-ass woman or a professional woman or something like that. So I think that it's a term that can be helpful, but I think it's a term that young women will grow out of and just want to be a badass business person or a professional or whatever that you do. A badass MD, a doctor, a badass, I don't know, customer service rep, whatever you are. I've said before, you need to bloom where you're planted, and all of that boss stuff will come. Okay, now let's get into work colleagues and YouTubers. So Anthea H asks, do my work colleagues know that I'm a Luxe YouTuber? I'm sure some of them do. Hey, to those of you who are watching, and to those of you who know that I'm on YouTube and are afraid to walk up to me and say hello. Hi, I'm glad you're here. So some of them do, and they've told me. They might request a one-on-one and say, oh, I love your channel, which is really, really sweet. And some of them do and they don't, and that's fine too. I don't promote my YouTube channel at work, and I think a lot of people who are on my same level don't necessarily know, because it's just kind of not the space that they deal in. I am unique in the fact that I come from the world of technology, and so I've always been really connected to social media, and I've also seen social media as a way that I could give back to the community. And mainly my interests are professional and self-development. And then of course I love luxury. So I don't promote it, but I think some people know and some people don't. So I couldn't give you a gauge of what percentage of people know, but I do know the ones who have said, hey, I love your channel, have always been really positive about it, and said that they really enjoy it. So I thank all of you who have worked with me in the past or work with me now for watching. And Memes Mills asks, what inspired me to get into luxury and start a YouTube channel? So I'll answer. And then the second question was, have I ever received judgment from my family, friends, and colleagues? So what inspired me to get into luxury and start a YouTube channel? So I have been into luxury since the day my husband bought me a Louis Vuitton handbag. And then that was it for me. And I would say that was about 15 years ago. So I've been into luxury a long time ago, and I've wanted to do it on the level that I do it now for a really long time. But I am a big first things first kind of girl. And so I didn't want to really, go crazy with luxury until I felt like my financial house was in order enough for me to do so. And what inspired me to start a YouTube channel? So I had a blog for a while and never really put my back into the blog. It was fine. It was okay, but it was never, the reason why you guys don't see me post a lot of outfits and things like that is because that requires another person to take pictures of you, or it requires you to have a setup and do the timer on the camera and have a background, and it just never fit with my lifestyle as a professional. I have so much respect for those of you that can make that happen, but that's really difficult for me. So blogging just wasn't a fit for the time that I was able to devote. But I did find that YouTube, if I had a moment to sit down and talk at a computer screen, and then put that into the universe for people to consume, that was a much better fit for what I was able to accommodate time-wise. So that's one piece of it, the practical matter of it. The second piece of it is, I was leaving a job one day and somebody said to me, oh, I'm going to miss seeing your outfits every day. And so when she said that, I thought, there's got to be a way, because I have a lot of fun with it. And I think that it was fun for people just to see what I had on every day. And so that's when I started my blog, but then the YouTube channel came after that. So Memes Mills, I hope that answers your question. Thank you for it. It was a great one. Oh, Memes Mills, the second part of your question is, have I ever received judgment from family, friends, and colleagues? Yes, I absolutely have. I receive judgment on a day-to-day basis. Even those who don't watch my YouTube channel or know that I have a YouTube channel, they see that I have a lot of bags, and I might have a different bag every time that they see me. CJ just walked in. You want to say hey? I'm doing my Q&A. But I will say I have amazing support from my kids and my family.
Go here.
But I get some people who just judge me based on what they see, and they've never had an interaction with me. I've had people make comments that they think I don't catch what they're really saying between the lines as far as, my love of luxury. And a lot of people assume that you can't be a nice or kind person and be into luxury, which is a bit ridiculous from me. Of course, I receive judgment on YouTube from trolls and people who they'll give you a comment that's positive, but it's wrapped in judgment. So, they'll say something like, "Oh, nice bag. Must be nice to be able to da. And I go, oh, okay. And I'm always very gracious, and I'm just going to thank you, because usually those comments are more a reflection of how people think about themselves. And whenever I do a disclaimer on my channel, so many of you are so super supportive, like, you don't owe nobody no kind of explanation. And I know, and I don't, but it's still a little annoying as well. So yes, I receive judgment, never from my family. I have the world's most supportive family, and that's just not that's not just my immediate family, but that's also my sisters are really, really great. Actually, my sister number 2, I'm one of 4 girls. Sister number 2 watches my YouTube channel religiously, and she appreciates luxury. It's not her thing, but she does it because she supports me, and she's still trying to figure out how to leave a comment below. She's my best friend, and I support her wholeheartedly. We're very different, but we're very, very much the same. So never from my family, for sure from people online, and at times for people who know me personally. So it just all rolls off my back, and I keep doing me. Let's see. Now I'm going on to a couple of questions about wearing designer in the office. So Charm313 asks, thoughts on wearing designer in the office? Is it ostentatious? It can be, Charm, if you don't do it the right way. I don't wear, for example, if you guys go back to my haulathon and you look at the haulathon where I went to New York City and I wore those big Chanel No. 5 earrings, I would never wear those to the office. That's just a little too much. But I will wear a touch of Chanel. Like I probably wouldn't wear these. These are a little bit big. But my double C earrings, or some small, like not a pendant earring, but these type of earrings that have a little Chanel logo on them. I will wear my Chanel necklaces as well. I think that's fine. It really depends on what company you're at, and at times it does depend on what level you're at. So if you are walking around in sort of a factory all day, it just doesn't make sense, right? Or if you're not working sort of in a more corporate environment, I would say probably leave it at home. But you're going to have to judge your own workplace for yourself. I also have been asked the question of what do I think of people who are sort of at the entry level wearing luxury. I'm probably not a great barometer of what you should do, because I think it's great. I think if you appreciate luxury and I see you with your Chanel earrings, or I see you with a pair of Chanel shoes, I'm going to be happy for you. I do know, though, that there are some executives who can be like, who would have the opinion, who does that person think they are? And, that's just something that you can't help. I think it all has to do with reading your workplace right and your comfort level and how you want to show up and who you are. But I will say personally, I don't wear my biggest, loudest pieces of Chanel to the workplace, although people do notice my luxury. I wear Christian Louboutin shoes a lot in the workplace. People notice those. And I think people watch you, especially when you are an executive, closer than you would think that they watch you. So I would just say use your judgment for your workplace. It can be ostentatious if you work in a workplace where people just don't dress up or they don't do that. So you always want to kind of go with the flow of your office, but add your own little flair. So I would say if you're in an office where everybody's ultra casual, I would wear your little, double C earrings, a pair of little small ones. And that's just a touch of luxury that's hopefully not going to tick anybody off. But if you work in a more corporate environment, if you're an executive, if you're sitting, your assistant is outside of your office and you have an office and, it's a little bit different thing, then you can probably break out your Christian Louboutins and a little bit more Chanel. Also, a good way to incorporate luxury into the workplace is your work tote. So I have a black Chanel work tote that has a subtle double C in silver on it. And that's great. A lot of my peekaboos are not, unless you're into luxury and you understand Fendi, it looks like a beautiful, nice bag, but you wouldn't know that it was necessarily a luxury bag. So I would say use your best judgment. Adria Buchanan asks a similar question, but a good one. Has dressing luxuriously helped me land high-paying jobs? No, it has not, because if you go back to my career wardrobe basics video, when I am dressing for an interview, I might have that little touch of luxury, that double C earring, but it's not noticeable. I have on, typically a black sheath dress and a nice pair of earrings and a pair of simple pumps. I might wear Christian Louboutin, I might not. But I don't think that it's mattered, because I really tone it down for the interview, and I suggest that you do as well. So I think dressing appropriately has helped me land high-paying jobs, but certainly not luxuriously. And another thing about the high-paying, high-ranking jobs is people want to know that they don't have to worry about you. So they want to know that if you're coming to a board meeting, you're going to show up dressed appropriately. Or if you're doing a presentation, you're going to show up with the right attire, right? The interview process is more so, especially if you get the in-person video, or especially if you get the in-person interview, is more about judging you as a cultural fit, because they've already read your resume. They're going to ask you a couple of questions about your previous experience, but it's more, can I work with this person? So I would say no, dressing luxuriously has not helped me land high-paying jobs. Dressing appropriately has. And then she asks another great question. How has my image evolved through my career? Oh, dramatically. So I was feeling my way through the workplace 20 some odd years ago, just like the rest of you. I wore a lot of just regular work pants and nice button-down shirts. And then I really started to study the people who had positions that I wanted to aspire to. And while they usually didn't wear luxury, they were usually dressed in a certain way where their clothes were very tailored, or I noticed the types of things that they were wearing. And so over time, I started to imitate and figure out what my own style was. So I would say it's evolved dramatically. I mean, if I looked at the way that I dressed as a young professional right out of school, it was basically a lot of, at one point I wore khakis because khakis was the thing to wear. And back in the day, there wasn't really a lot of guidance on dressing as a professional woman. So as a professional woman, we would sort of try and imitate what the men did, as an example. So I remember when a cobalt blue button-down shirt used to be the thing. So I would wear a cobalt blue button-down shirt, and I would wear a nice pair of dress slacks, and that would be it. And I didn't really get into heels until probably about 10 years into my career. Then I started wearing heels, and then it went to sort of luxury. So it has evolved. Adrienne also asks, advice for mid-career women breaking into management for how to dress. I would say figure out what your style is. Check out my career wardrobe basics video and start with those basics. I would say great stores for mid-career are going to be J. Crew, Ann Taylor, Banana Republic, Ann Taylor Loft, places like that. And then it's all about building a basic uniform and putting your flair on it, so to speak. So if you have a nice black sheath dress that you're wearing, make sure it's the right length. Make sure, if you're going to have it a little bit shorter, that you have on pantyhose. Make sure you have a great pair of black pumps. And then maybe how you accessorize is your signature. Or maybe you wear a scarf with it. That's your signature. Or you wear a really beautiful necklace. It does not have to be luxury or designer or Chanel or anything like that. That is what you do. But there are certain basics that you should have in your wardrobe. Those black slacks, the pencil skirt. And you can have the pencil skirts in a variety of colors, a good, silk blouses and things like that. I would say if you stick within those lines, that'll be great. Also, there's a lot of inspiration on Pinterest. And so you can look at a higher end outfit. And these days, there's so many options for creating an outfit that's at your price point that's a very similar look. So I would say that is my advice to mid-career women breaking into management for how to dress. I will also say that if you happen to look younger or have a baby face, that's followed me also throughout my career, I would say to make sure you dress a little bit higher than you normally would. That just gives you that little extra edge. And even if you, for example, work in an environment where jeans are great, I would say jeans and a silk blouse and maybe a heel versus jeans and a flat and maybe a cotton shirt. So those subtle differences can really make all the impact. Mday Ree asks, what advice would I give to my younger self? I think that was your question, or it might have been an anonymous question from someone who did not want to be named. So apologies if this was not You. To my younger self, I would say figure out who you are and really spend your time in your 20s and 30s getting to know yourself and love yourself, because your future decisions are going to be based off of really getting grounded in who you are. I would also say, while you don't have the commitments of family and marriage, go travel and live somewhere else, go experience something else. Do something that is completely outside of the box for you. I would also say to enjoy your body while you can, because it can take so much more abuse, meaning less sleep, less water. You can eat what you want to eat and not feel like crap the next day. So enjoy that. And it would just be to spend your 20s and early to mid 30s being, this is going to sound terrible, but being selfish. Like, just not being a terrible person, but just, like I said, figuring out you. So, if it comes between, a relationship that you're in trying to hold you back from doing certain things, and you guys aren't committed beyond a, yes, you're my boyfriend, yes, you're my girlfriend, go do that other thing. That's advice that I've actually put to practice in my life. I decided that I would take advantage of every opportunity. And until you put a down payment on my ovaries, which means you put a ring on it and we've got a date, then you really don't get much of a say, because anything could happen and I could pass up this opportunity and you're no longer in the picture, and neither is the opportunity. So I would just say live for yourself, because being grounded in who you are is just going to make you a better mother, a better partner, a better sister, a better anything, even if you don't aspire to motherhood. That brings me to another piece is, don't feel like you have to conform to the mold. You be you and live out loud. Now is the time, while you have no other commitments, to do the career that you want. So if you're not liking what you're doing, make a change before people depend on you and that change becomes much different. If, for example, you are in a relationship that may not be the norm, if you're in a racial relationship and people are judging you, do that daggone relationship. Forget about that. If you happen to be gay or transgender or whatever, do that. Live that out loud. Life is short. Life is not long. And there is only so much that you are going to be able to accomplish in this lifetime. And you might as well be living the way that you want to live as you're doing those things. I mean, of course, I'm not saying at other people's expense. I stop short of, don't hurt nobody while you're doing it. Don't encroach on anybody. And it shouldn't be at anyone else's expense, you making these choices. But in the traditional sense, if you're a young person, you should be able, assuming that you're not committed to anyone, like, have a child or have people really depending on you, or decided to get married early, live your life and let the sky be the limit. So I hope that helps. So I think that is it for sort of background and career questions. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any reactions to anything that I said, I'm looking forward to reading your comments below and, of course, responding to them, as that is very important to me. I hope that this helped you get to know me a little bit better professionally. And if you have any follow-up questions, please leave them in the comments. That is all for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I look forward to seeing you guys soon in part 3 of my Q&A. Bye.